Deaf people of Reddit, what are some things you didn't realize made sounds until you were told? Ho, got hearing aids at 12 years old. Shopping carts are loud and I didn't like them. Also didn't realize you could hear water running in a house. Always wondered how people knew when someone else was showering. I didn't realize jerking off made sound. Well, depends how loud the porn is. As a child I was mostly deaf, got an operation to hear better when I was 5 or 6. Was scared on the drive home because the car was so loud. And apparently I ran out the toilet crying because I didn't know the flush was so loud. Toilet paper coming off the roll. It's like wook. BOWW wow. That's way too much toilet paper. It's not nearly enough. I recall reading something that said a lot of dead people who get a C are really surprised that the sun didn't make any noise. I hear dead people. I read that formerly deaf people are also surprised. As a guy with cochlear implants, I've known that a lot of things make sound and some don't. The one thing that surprised me when I first came across it is that hearing people can hear inside their own head. I can't. Do you mean like a voice in the thoughts? I have that and constant music. Like my own personal radio station. I mean more like being able to hear the blood in your ears, the sounds reverberating inside your head when you speak, etc. Oh, gotcha. That increases greatly when wearing hearing protection. My dad recently got hearing aids and one thing he noticed was how loud his keyboard was when he was typing. In the end he had to buy a super quiet keyboard because he couldn't stand it. He also mentions that he began to notice the sound his waterproof coat makes when he walks. Born hard of hearing aids since around 4 years old. When I was in middle school I was clicking a pen open and close repeatedly out of boredom and had no idea that it was making a noticeably loud noise. I thought it was barely loud enough to even get to the students sitting next to me. I'm still mind blown how my wife can hear trick-or-treaters before they get to the front door. Regularly on TV shows when the captions are showing whistling or birds. I don't hear anything, and I still almost feel like they're lying to me just trying to add ambience for us deaf folk. I'm sure I can find more of these. I had a friend who was deaf and just got hearing aids recently. I have a diesel truck and even though he knew this, the look on his face when I revved my engine was amusing. Homeboy actually thought my truck wasn't loud enough. Gonna be honest mate. He's gonna be hearing lots of new things. Go forth and experience this joy with him. I was with him when he got his hearing aids. He was most excited to hear me sing, which I was more than happy to do for him. I'd told this story before and even had it stolen by a karma farming bot too. I was helping the sister of my friend, who had just gotten newer much better cochlear implants. These are even Bluetooth, which to me is just weird as hell. Anyway, she was excitedly telling about all the things that make noise she didn't know, like paper sliding or your hand on a railing. Then she went off about she didn't like cats because they would make the movement like they were meowing and nothing would sound. The part that made me lose it was when she remarked that she thought boobs should make noise when they moved but they didn't. I read somewhere that when cats meow silently, looking like they're meowing but we don't hear anything, they are making noise, but it's just in a register too high for human ears. For some reason that struck me as the most adorable thing ever. But now I'm going to think of your friend being mad at not hearing something and laugh every time one of mine does this. Wish I could introduce her one of mine that's so crazy noisy. Boiling in a pot with a non-see-through lid. I usually prefer a lid I can see through. People with normal hearing can tell by it, but I have to actually be able to see the water to tell if it's boiling. It's really only a problem if it actually matters if you take the lid off, of course. Crickets. I've had hearing issues my entire life. It wasn't until recently that, at the age of 25, I got given hearing aids. Apparently my hearing really was that bad. Anyway, I've noticed children are much louder than I perceived them to be. Supermarkets are really loud. Like, WTF, can't you people be quiet? And kettles. WTF, how loud you gotta be. Also, I had never heard rain fall on the roof of a car before. Honestly, sometimes I would prefer to be deaf than listen to the sudden piercing scream of a child. I'm currently impacted by a blasted painful ear infection, but the muted sound of children. The cover on my kettle spout is broken and off-center, hangs slightly open. It's not nearly as loud now, it's perfect. Or you can put the kettle on a thick towel so the vibrations don't transmit into the whole desk. My mother is not completely deaf, but she says she's been unable to hear most deep noises since birth. Never even knew cats purr until she finally got hearing aids about 10 years ago. That's kinda sad. She was probably aware cats vibrated, but not that it made a sound. My grandfather got hearing aids recently, and he hadn't realized that you could hear yourself chewing. He was really surprised. Single-sided deaf here. I did not know music in stereo meant you hear two different sides of the music in headphones up till college. No high-quality mono headset on computer. If you use Windows 10, search your computer for ease of access audio settings and click turn on mono audio. You can do this on most phones as well. Was friends with a deaf guy in high school. Nobody could stand him when he first transferred in because he would make this loud high-pitched screech yell all the time. I finally wrote him a note telling him it physically hurt other people's ears. He apologized and wrote back he did it 'cause he liked the vibrations. Nobody had ever told him how loud it was. The unimplanted deaf community often are unaware how noisy they are. They bang pots around, have athletic grunting sex, and rip gigantic farts. They can also shun other deaf people whom have had cochlear implants like they're traitors and never communicate with them again. Yeah, that part's so weird and sad. I've heard about the cochlear implant thing. Has there been any studies on why this is? Some people believe that being deaf is being part of a different culture. They have their own language, their own churches, their own schools. So they feel like if someone willingly decides to get implants, they decide to leave the deaf culture and community behind. Not only that, they have their own plays, poetry slams, parties, you name it. ASL has secret signs used to refer to the hearing, as well as ethnic slurs, swear words, and all kinds of other off-color signs used that they aren't cool with the hearing knowing about. Even if you choose to learn ASL as a hearing person, there are certain signs you will never learn. Deaf here with cochlear implants. Back in 2012 also I gave a talk to a bunch of people, similar to a TED Talk about my experience as a C user. In my audience were plenty of deaf people along with some academicians who taught at deaf schools and whatnot. At the Q&A session, one lady, undersecretary of a ministry, asserted that you can't live without sign language. I replied to her, learning sign language is like learning a completely new language. You think all of my friends, family, colleagues and everyone I interact with should learn too, just because I said so. I prefer living in both worlds. Sign for those who understand it and need it. Talk to those who don't sign. I'm living without it just fine. She was obnoxious, along with the others who stood with her. The Netflix intro. One summer job I had back when I was in university in the 1980s was in an institution for mentally disabled people. Sorry if I'm not using the currently correct term. One resident there was, I'm guessing, in his early 30s and couldn't speak and was probably deaf. I don't know how it came about, but someone apparently finally figured out that they should try hearing aids on the guy. Guess what? They worked. No one knows exactly what he thought of all the sounds he was hearing, but the smile on that guy's face over the next few days was priceless, and I'll never forget it.